Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something that sounds like simple math, but it's actually a massive, structural economic proposition. We're looking at the 78-22 ratio. Now, from an economist's perspective, this isn't just some random division of numbers. It's being proposed as a golden ratio, a mechanism that could literally reshape our entire economic reality and how wealth is distributed. Can one single ratio completely revitalize an economy? I know, it sounds totally audacious, but that's exactly the paradigm shift we're breaking down today. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this massive number right here, 90%. Economic analysis points out a pretty startling reality about how we view value today. When we think about the economy, a lot of us still picture factories, tangible goods, stuff we can physically touch, right? But the traditional physical economy only makes up about 10% of true value in our modern world. A staggering 90% of the modern economy is actually the knowledge economy. It's driven by intellect, software, ideas. And yet, incredibly, we're still trying to govern all this massive intellectual wealth using outdated industrial-era models. The math just doesn't add up anymore. And that friction, that's exactly where our story begins.
So, to figure out how to navigate this 90% knowledge economy, our source introduces a classic philosophical concept, but adapted for modern economics. It's the heaven-earth-human framework. Think of it like a three-legged stool supporting this whole new era. If one leg is weak, the entire system just collapses. The first leg is heaven, representing the big-picture economic vision and the natural laws of the market. Then we have earth, which is the foundation, the actual platform where all the action happens. And finally, the indispensable third leg is human, the people who are actually driving the system. These three elements are the absolute backbone of the economic transformation we're looking at today.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll unpack the 78-22 mystery. Next, heaven, intellectual vision. Then, earth, the rebirth platform. Followed by human, from worker to partner. And finally, we'll look at the barrier of the old mindset.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the 78-22 mystery, unlocking the ratio. And this brilliantly illustrates the proposed 78-22 model. A massive 78% of the generated value goes directly to the creators. We're talking about the people who are actually sweating, producing, and bringing real value into existence. As for that remaining 22%, well, from an expert economic perspective, this is strictly designated for ecosystem maintenance. It's not just pure profit meant to be pocketed by an owner or a corporate board. Nope. It's the operational cost needed to keep the shared platform running smoothly for everyone. It completely redefines the whole concept of a corporate gut.
Moving right along to Section 2, Heaven, Intellectual Vision, a new economic vision.
Here we see a really stark contrast between two totally different economic worldviews. The old economy is firmly rooted in physical assets, think real estate or massive manufacturing plants. It's a system that often gets completely caught up in counting empty millions on paper based on speculative property values, which honestly can sometimes be pretty hollow underneath. On the flip side, the new economy vision goes straight to the heart of what real value is today, intellectual property. In a knowledge economy, value isn't something you can physically hold in your hand. It's the code, the patent, the brand, the creative output. Intellectual property is absolutely the true driving force of modern wealth. To really cement this expert economic analysis, we don't have to look far. Just look at tech behemoths like NVIDIA and Apple. Are these companies valued in the trillions because of the physical bricks in their headquarters or the factory floors they contract out? Absolutely not. Their astronomical valuation comes from what they own in the abstract, their patents, their software ecosystems, their incredibly complex chip designs. Intellectual property is undeniably the new gold of our era. If your economic vision isn't centered on capturing and protecting intellectual capital, you're basically playing a 20th century game in a 21st century world.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds. Earth, the rebirth platform, a new playing field.
When analyzing platforms, our source definitely does not mince words. It compares the toxic elements of the old platform model with what it calls the rebirth platform. The old model is full of these ghost companies. You know the type, entities that draw beautiful, sweeping scenarios and promise massive returns, but internally, they're completely empty. They're essentially zero-sum games designed to lure in the naive. The antidote to that toxic environment is the new platform, the rebirth platform. This is an ecosystem built on an entirely different set of rules. It isn't about the big fish eating the small fish anymore. It's a structural guarantee of shared mutual growth. Wealth distribution is literally baked right into the platform's DNA.
Let's anchor this theory in some hard data. Take a look at a traditional ride-sharing platform like Grab. Reports show they can take a staggering 43% fee from a driver's ride. Think about that. Nearly half the value generated by the worker goes straight to the platform. Now compare that to the Rebirth platform model, which proposes a lean 22% maintenance fee. That's roughly half the cost. The difference here is totally revolutionary. It leaves vastly more capital in the hands of the people who are actually performing the service, and it shifts the platform from being an extractive middleman to a supportive infrastructure.
And that brings us to Section 4, Human from Worker to Partner, Redefining Labor.
You know, the way an economy views its people completely dictates its ultimate success. The old view of labor treats human beings as mere tools. It's a very industrial mindset where labor is seen purely as a variable cost. And what do businesses always do with costs? They ruthlessly cut and optimize them. Workers labor intensely, but the wealth flows entirely upward. The new view of labor, however, demands a dramatic paradigm shift. In a knowledge economy where 90% of the value is intellectual, humans are no longer a cost to be minimized. They are the core asset. They have to be viewed as essential, value-creating partners because they are the ones actually generating that intellectual wealth.
So how does an individual actually transform from a traditional worker into a true partner? Our source walks us through a very specific three-step economic process. Step 1 is to package your knowledge. This means taking your raw skills, your experiences, your abilities, and turning them into a distinct, definable output or service. Step 2, price your intellect. Once your knowledge is packaged, it has to be fairly and accurately priced in the market, recognizing the true value of the intellectual property you're bringing. And finally, step 3, become a partner. By bringing priced intellectual capital to the table, you transition from earning a flat, expendable wage to actually earning equity and sharing in the profits of the intellectual property you helped create.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, the barrier of the old mindset, the psychological trap. So the crucial point is this: if the 78-22 model is so incredibly beneficial, why isn't everyone already using it? Well, the hurdle isn't the technology, and it isn't a lack of capital. The true barrier is human psychology, what the source calls the mindset trap. This trap is built on greed that leads to toxic, unsustainable business models. It's heavily rooted in a short-term profit focus. The source metaphorically describes this as being stuck at the old pig trough, where people are desperately fighting for immediate scraps instead of building long-term wealth. It relies on manipulative tactics to extract value rather than actually creating it. This outdated, short-term mentality is by far the strongest chain tying us to the past.
Which leaves us standing at a really critical crossroads. The analysis we've explored today asks a vital question of both businesses and society at large. Dare to change or stay stuck in the old mindset? Will we adapt to an intellectual property-centric economy, treat creators as true partners, and adopt fair distribution models like the 78-22 ratio? Or are we going to remain trapped in the extractive, physical-first thinking of the past? It's a profound economic choice, and the direction we take will absolutely define the future of wealth for all of us. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the systems around you.